Okay, we got 2026 February question 2. It's UCC from the California Bar Exam. Let's kick it off. What arguments will Betty and Betty buyer, that's how the examiners like to do it, Sam's going to be the seller, will likely make to support her claim? What arguments will the seller likely make in response, and who is likely to prevail? Okay, very standard call to question. Doesn't really help us with anything except we just have B&S. Turns out to be buyer and seller. Of course, we wouldn't know that just by the call. So Sam is a well-known dealer in valuable musical instruments, including antique violins. So Sam is a merchant in the industry. He deals in goods of the kind, clearly. So UCC is going to end up applying, and this law is going to control. Betty owns a high-end music store and has occasionally purchased string instruments from Sam. Betty knows what she's doing. She's also a merchant. So we have the UCC controls, they're dealing in goods, and we have two merchants. Very standard start to a UCC essay. Sam telephoned Betty and told. Notice the words telephone, told. Tells me it's oral. Look out for the statute of frauds. Anything over $500 for goods must be in writing. Does not apply to service contracts. It's goods over $500. Told her that he had a violin for sale that was made by Enrico Rocca. And those were very high. I know I looked this up. Those were very high quality violins in the late 1800s. And there was one that sold recently for $233,000 in 2018. I put it in my model answer. I thought I just got a kick out of it. All right, so Betty agreed. So we have the offer. So Sam told her that he had a violin for sale. That's the offer. So we have an offer right there. Betty agreed to buy it for $200,000. There's the acceptance, and we have consideration. So do we have a valid contract? We do have a valid contract. However, it's just not enforceable because it's not in writing. So there's a slight difference between a valid contract and an enforceable contract. But once they put it in writing, we're going to be fine. Sam signed. Now it's enforceable against Sam because his signature is all Betty would need. And then emailed the standard form sales contract to Betty. Fine. The contract stated in part, seller agrees to sell and buyer agrees to buy the following product, violin, for the purchase price of $200,000. Now, if this is what the writing says in its entirety, I mean, it's a standard form sales contract, but what violin? It doesn't really describe it. So violins, and I used to actually play when I was in the fourth grade, first or fifth grade, actually, mostly in fourth. I actually like violins, I really do. But we don't know what violins don't sell for $200,000. This is a special type of violin. So this turns out, it took me the second read to figure it out. On the second read, I said to myself, oh, that's the parole evidence rule for Betty to be able to explain or interpret what the word violin meant, and what it means is an Enrico Rocca, early 19th century special violin, known for its very high quality violin. Sam filled in the words violin and $200,000 in his own handwriting. I still don't know what the examiners were getting at with that. In his own words. I don't know if there's something there that I'm missing. I just don't see it. The remaining pages of the contract were pre-printed. Fine. Betty signed, dated, and returned the contract to Sam along with payment. So, statute of frauds is satisfied, but even so, we don't have any statute of frauds problems because full performance has already been made. So even if they didn't have a writing, it'd still be enforceable because he shipped, she accepted, boom, done. Sam then shipped Betty the violin. When Betty received it, and technically, she hasn't officially accepted under the UCC. It'll be a rightful rejection because she has a reasonable time to inspect the goods. And it says when Betty received the violin, she sent it to an expert appraiser. Okay, a week later, the appraiser told Betty that laboratory tests confirmed that the violin was not a genuine Rocca, but rather a skillfully made recent replica worth around $5,000. Now, keep in mind, the Rocca was back in the early 19th century, and this is a recent one that's a replica, so it's not what she bargained for. Whether this was a mistake, a misrepresentation, or whatever the case is, she's going to likely want to rescind the contract. I don't know if she's going to want to keep this violin, so she can either rescind the contract or keep the violin and get $195,000, which is what the call of the question ends up asking about. Betty immediately telephoned Sam and told him she would return the violin and expect her money back. I think that's reasonable. Sam flabbergasted. He sincerely believed the violin to be a genuine raka. And we have to take the facts as the examiners give them to us. So what they're saying is this is not fraud. Sam did not intentionally lie. He said he sincerely believed it to be genuine. But it doesn't, so you won't get fraud and you won't get punitive damages for it being the tort of deceit if he knew and intentionally misrepresented it. But what we do have what's called an innocent or negligent misrepresentation. And the remedy for that is generally rescission. You can easily rescind it on those grounds. And it's voidable by Betty. She can either keep it and go through with the contract, or she's obviously going to try and get out of the contract. Sam told Betty that she cannot return the violin. Huh? That's bad business, especially the fact that they've done business before. Sam pointed out that the written contract specified that the violin was sold as is, without warranty of any kind expressed or implied. Okay, so the language sold as is excludes any implied warranties. The implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose and the implied warranty of merchantability are completely excluded by the contract. Okay, now what about the express warranty? Here's the thing. He made a representation that she relied on that it was, he said it was an antique, raka, early at the 19th century, genuine violin. By making that statement of fact, that is an express warranty. So here he's trying to disclaim the express warranty. You can't do that. It's inconsistent with the conduct. The only way you can exclude or disclaim an express warranty is by not making one in the first place. Don't give anybody any warranties. Don't tell them, yes, this is what it is, because now you're guaranteeing, you're warranting, you're stating a statement of fact, making it an express warranty, and it cannot be disclaimed later on in the contract. So that's going to be stricken. The implied warranty is going to stand, but the express warranty is not there. Also, keep in mind, this is kind of interesting. I think my class gets a kick out of this. If you ever gone, and for those of you that have iPhones, I won't. You go into the Apple store and you see the iPhones are usually, or the iPads, and they're with that wire that you can't cut, and it's really hard to move, so you can't steal the thing. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is when you see the phone there on display? That is an express warranty. It's a sampler model. So what Apple is actually saying is, we guarantee that the phone you're looking at is what's in the box. That's actually an express warranty. Most people don't realize that. And yes, that does show up on the MBEs. Okay, back to the fact pattern. Betty protested that Sam had told her over the phone that the violin was a genuine raka. Okay, and that's why we're going to use parole evidence to explain what the term violin meant, because the average violin is not $200,000. Sam pointed out the written contract also included a clause stating, this written contract contains the entire agreement between the parties and supersedes any prior written oral agreements. Fine, that's a merger clause, and that means you cannot add or supplement any terms to the contract. But what you can do is explain or interpret what you meant by the word violin. So the parole evidence rule, which I like to call the Swiss cheese doctrine, is so riddled with holes, it almost never applies. It's kind of like independent contractors. You're pretty much just a non-delegable duty. I can almost assure that. Anyways, what we have here is she's going to be able to explain what they meant by violin, even though it's a fully integrated contract with a merger clause. And she's going to, and also the parole evidence rule, fraud, mistake. You can also get around the parole evidence rule with fraud or mistake. And here, they're both. If he genuinely believed it to be a real raka, then they are both mistaken. It's a mutual mistake. The basis of their agreement was clearly based on the fact that she thought, and he thought apparently, that it was an original, not a replica, not a fake, and therefore you're going to be able to get around the parole evidence rule in several different ways. Furious, Betty sued Sam for breach, seeking rescission. And interesting, they give you the two things, rescission and damages. Well, rescission, clearly, for not only a mistake, but just for the misrepresentation, even though it was an innocent misrepresentation, you're absolutely going to get rescission. Or damages. What would her damages be? Well, what did she expect to get? A violin worth $200,000. What did she get? a violin worth $5,000. So what are her damages? $195,000. Case closed, shut. So that would be expectation damages. I mean, she's not going to go cover on the open market, so technically it would be expectation damages. And the UCC allows incidental and consequential damages if necessary. So throw that in there with any UCC remedy. And if she does seek rescission, how does that work? She gives him back the violin. He gives her back the money. Simple as that. You unwind the transaction. Okay, and that's it. We're done. So what arguments will Betty Lake to support her claim? Mistake, parole evidence. We just went through all of them. Sam's gonna not have too many legs to stand on. Who's likely to prevail? Betty by a landslide. Okay, I'm Jason Tallariga. This is One Timers. My pleasure going through this with you. Let me know if you think I missed, I got anything wrong. If you had any comments to it, if there's any essays you want me to go through, let me know. I'd be more than happy to take a look at them and help you out. Take care.